Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, and welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Was the Meta. Now, if you don't know, the meta is from Red vs. Blue, and he is the main enemy for Season 10, I believe it is, Season 9 or Season 10. And he is very, very powerful. It takes the whole entire team of Red and Blue just to defeat him after multiple stabs, gunshots, and a warthog, sending him down into the water, drowning him by open wounds in his suit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do his main backstory and the time period of the first 10 months. And this is going to be a vigilante type Deku. So let's begin. Hang on, give me 1 minute. Before we start, I would just like to say that these are all the AIs that he is trying to collect. The first ones that he has is Epsilon, aka Church, and he has Theta as well as Omega. Those are the three he has first. I know this picture is very blurry. I'm sorry. I tried finding a better picture, but this is the best I can have. And this is all of the ones it shows. It shows all of them outlined. I know the words are blurry, but just look up the meta's AI from Red vs. Blue. Now, and the Q&A part, I was going to do a Q&A tonight, but I didn't receive any, I didn't receive that many questions. I only got about 2 questions. So I'm just going to answer the question right now. The future what if that I'm going to be, the future what ifs I'm going to be doing are probably going to be doing this one, a redo of my Goro series, a redo of my villain series, as well as several more. The main what if that I'm concentrating on right now are the ones that are being currently uploaded. But my best series so far is the Horror Sands series, and everyone likes the Sands series, so I'm going to be doing Era Sands, Killer Sands, and Bloody Sands from the Nightmare Sands series. If you haven't heard that series yet, then you don't know who I'm talking about. But those are the 3 next newest Sandses I'm going to be doing. Other than that, the most I can think of is what if Deku had like boosted gear or something. But there's already a lot of those out there, and they're pretty good. So I don't know how I can make it good by making him a villain or a hero. Iffy. But, anyways, let's get into it. We start off with Deku being born. Deku's raised in a very rough household. And as Deku was in his house one day, and he's about 3 at this time, his mother walks into his room, grabs him by the arm, drags him out, and throws him down the stairs and tells him to get to the kitchen and start cooking and cleaning. Yeah, I know this is pretty young for a kid, but his parents never really liked him. He would constantly be hurt, abused, and mistreated, being gravely injured to the point where he had to be in a coma at one point for a month. But at the same time, his body is toughened up. He can take brutal hits, as well as, negate most damage that he feels. For some reason, he's able to not feel that much pain. A natural pain reduction, you could say. Now, at the age of 5, Deku went to go get his quirk checked out with his parents. He was deemed quirkless. But then he heard a voice in his head. It was Omega. Why are we born quirkless? We should just show them all who we are. Deku said to himself in his head, "No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to hurt anyone." "Fine. You win this time," as the voice just disappeared. Deku then decided to just ignore it for the rest of the day, as Deku was 5 years old. Now, Deku went to sleep at midnight after the point of his parents hurting him and him cooking for him and not getting to eat himself. So Deku would stumble into his room after having multiple cut wounds and bleeding. He would pass out on his bed, heavily asleep. That's when his window was creaked open, enough for people to get in. These people were wearing all black, almost like a ninja suit. They would walk up to the boy and look at him, nod their heads, and they would, drag him out of there, covering his eyes and his mouth, just to be sure. Now, several hours later, after he was kidnapped, Deku would wake up, and he would just be having a light over him. He would look to his left, right, and attempt to look at his legs, as he was put into like a cross position. His arms are straight out, and his legs are put together straight, and they're chained right next to each other. He would try moving, but the chains would not let him. He would start freaking out and asking what's going on, but he couldn't talk. He forgot that one of his days of being abused, his parents took it too far and cut out a quarter of his tongue. He never wanted to speak again and open his mouth whenever he was near his parents, so he resorted to just noises. A grunt, a growl, a snarl, and a hiss. That's all he would produce. His parents thought that he was becoming animalistic and beast-like, so they would just treat him like a beast. But he couldn't talk. The only ones that understood him were the voices in his head, and they would agree, disagree, and they would form his personalities: trust, memories, and rage. Deku would look to his right and see a man sitting in a corner. As he would snarl and he would try to get up, panicking, the man would walk over to him, sedate him, and he would just fall asleep. During that time, several years have gone by, but during those several years, Deku became an experimental weapon. He grew, but what they did to him was more permanent than temporary. He's gone crazy. They put several more AIs in his head, 5 more to be exact. I don't remember their names, but I think it was Gamma. Shit. I don't remember. I'm gonna have to look it up again. If you guys can just put down all the AIs in the bottom or in a comment, I'll pin it, and then you can put all of their personalities, like trust and memory and all that. One of you guys can do that for me, I'll pin it, and I'll be sure to remember it for the next part. But Deku lost his mind. He was practically crazy because of all the voices arguing in his head, telling him to get up and escape. But what Deku didn't know is what they were doing to his body on the outside. He was sedated for so long. His body grew. Since he was sedated and he was on IV bags, his body was skinny. But they injected a drug into him, a drug that gave him strength, speed, and most of all, pain tolerance. His average strength could match All Might in his prime with 50% of his strength. And his speed could do the same. His durability was enough to take a hit from All Might with 100% punch in his prime, and still be able to get up and walk. Deku had a collar around his neck that prevented him from talking, just in case he could talk whenever his tongue started to heal better. They did give him, they put a healing pod system into his body that would heal his body whenever it needed to. A type of regenerative system. It was attached to his body in his abdominal cavity. They would set it in there, and it was a small device, and it would attach it to one of his walls in his back of his body. Not noticeable to the outside of the world, but on the inside, it was very noticeable. It wouldn't affect his body, and it was not corrodable, and it had a pretty much infinite battery source. And it would kick on with an electrical shock from the AIs in his head, telling him to heal. They left it like that for several days to heal up his tongue, Then they put the they put the collar on him, and then they took out the system after surgery. They thought it would be useful still, so they kept on to the device, but they wanted to change it up. Now it's an outside usable device. As Deku was lying there still, sedated, the voices were telling him to get up. As he did, he's currently 14, and he's looking around. He's currently 5'8", very muscular and lean at the same time. He looks around and he's snarling and hissing as the collar's still on him. And he breaks the chains, and he tries to get out, but he's stumbling. He hasn't walked for so many years. Deku falls down to the ground as he looks up, and he sees the man standing there that injected him. He tries to attack him, but he just falls face first on the ground. The man laughing at him just walks up to him, sedates him again, turns around and leaves. Deku falls unconscious as they get stronger chains. During this time, they would experiment with his body, throwing him through various tests to see what he can go through. Once he turned 18, he had enough. He broke out. He decided to go after everyone. He broke out the chains, and he ran. He was getting advice from the AI. Turn down the hall to the right, now to the left. Go straight forward. Make sure to kill the guard, and enter that room. He entered the room, and to his surprise, it was an armory. He walked up to this white, and I'm going to say white and red armor instead of white and brown. It's white and red armor with a yellow visor. Deku decided to just lock the door behind him, just in case anyone decided to get cautious. He looked at it and he decided it'd be a good idea to put the suit of armor on. And this is what the abilities have, and yes, I did screenshot this from a wiki page. He has the armor, which instead of the brown, replace that with red. His weapons, he has the brute shot, the magnum, the battle rifle, and I'm adding a shotgun instead of a warthog. And his armor enhancement, the cloaking, temporal distortion, aka time distortion, super strength, over shields, domed energy shields, enhanced motion tracker, and color change, aka invisibility. Those are all the abilities this suit gave him. But he also has the healing pod, which they modified and put on the suits. He was currently in the helmet version of it, but it still ran through his body like a shield. As Deku has the armor on and he looks at himself, and he looks down at his hands as he turns his hands around and around. He puts on some gloves and he closes and opens his hands a couple times. Then he looks to his right, and he sees this giant cannon, the brute shot. He puts it on his back as he looks around some more lockers. He finds a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle. He equips them anyways, as he starts hearing banging, as then they come through, and for some reason his body acts instinctively. Riding at the guard, punching the weapon out of his hands, taking a knife out, which he had on the suit, stabbing into the guard's throat, and then taking it out and throwing the guard's body at the other guards. This fight would go on for hours and hours, slaughtering everyone in his path, as it was being broadcasted to the heroes. The heroes getting wind of a breakout of an experimental weapon. They thought it was a robbery, but little did they know that the experiment was human. So they ran over to the scene to see what was going on. They came across this figure in white armor, weapons on his back, sides, and a knife in his hands. As he was standing on the roof, the heroes would try to attack him, but he would just disable them, break limbs, and knock them out, or even kill them if they tried hard enough. As he would just walk away from the scene, this man in red, yellow, and blue with blonde hair and two antennae-like hair sticking up on his head, would punch the man in the armor. But as he does, a shield goes up and blocks the punch. The shield being destroyed as there's a giant wind pressure. Deku just stands there as this figure looks at him, and he says, "Who are you, and why are you breaking in here?" Deku snarls and hisses at the man. The man doesn't know what to do, so then a little figure pops up on his shoulder, and it says, "His name is Izuku Midoriya, and he just escaped from this facility from being tortured for several years." The figure was surprised, and he asked, "Wait, he escaped? Does that mean that yes, he is the weapon?" As All Might would try to approach him, and I'm gonna call him Meta from now on. As the glowing figure said, "Don't get close." He's still very hostile right now. He's under the control of another. He's in rage. As the figure asks, "How do I stop him?" "You can't," says the colorful AI on the shoulder. The only thing to do is just avoid him, or just let him be." "What's his plan?" says the figure. As all the AIs appear, except for one, Omega, "To make us whole again." As they all went back into his body, Deku turns around, and he's about to jump, the figure says, "Wait. Are you going to become a villain, or are you going to become a hero?" As one of the AIs pop out, and it's Epsilon. He says, "We aren't going to be anything. We are the meta." As he jumps off, punching his way through buildings and other things alike. After several years, Deku of wandering the streets was a little bored, so he decided to just look around for entertainment. And this happens way before. I'm just saying this happens way before the anime. So if you want to think of like 10 years before, or 20 years maybe. So All Might was still in his prime whenever he confronted Deku, or Meta. As Meta was running around looking for work to do, he came across an agency. It was called the Freelance agency. He walked into the building with all of his gear on. They tried to stop him, but he just slaughtered him and threw him out of the way, until he reached the boss's office. He walked in, breaking the doors down, as the boss stood up and sat down again and said, "Meta, is it?" Meta snarls. An AI pops up and says, "Yeah, you got it. What is it?" "Well, I wanted to recruit you to my agency." The Meta hisses and turns his head to a tilted confusion. The CEO of the Freelance agency says, "Well, we're a freelance agency. We're like what you would call a mercenary. But we want you to join us so you can do some work." Meta nods his head, saying sure, as he then walks with the CEO to his new crew. It contains Lotus, Washington, and several others. They would train with Meta, but Meta would always win. No matter what they tried, he was too advanced. But whenever it came to personal life, they never thought of asking him until someone wanted to ask him, and it was Washington. Washington walked up to him and asked him about his personal life, as Omega immediately took over and started beating Washington down, almost killing him, as they would pull him off him and stop him, and he would just go on a brutal beatdown of everyone on his team, as they would all, as an AI would pop out as Meta was walking away, and they would say, "Don't ask about the family. It's a very sensitive topic," says Theta, as then he disappears. And that's where I'm going to end it. I hope you guys enjoy. See you guys in the next video, and sorry for the late upload. Bye.